Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm your host, Daniel Davis. You know, it seems interesting as we start to approach midlife, we think to ourselves we should have a lot more going on in our lives than we do. We should be further along and have attained most of the goals and dreams that we set before us. But as we know, sometimes we get veered off of what we believe is our life's path and try to find ourselves getting back onto it again, setting those goals, reliving those potential dreams, but somehow it just doesn't seem to work out all the time. So we decide to go and seek out advice or perhaps even some coaching to find out how we can get ourselves back into balance. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is someone who does just that. She is an executive life coach. She has spent time in the Portland circuit on such programs as The Buzz, AM Northwest, and KATU Channel 2. She has an MBA in business psychology and is continuing her PhD in social science and coach training to provide a platform of knowledge from which she punches everyday topics with practical experience that promotes empowerment. This directly from her. And I'd like to welcome on our program Stephanie Samanchi to the Beyond 50 radio program as she talks about getting past halfway while maintaining balance at the same time to be the person that you strive to be. And Stephanie, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be with you.
Now, your motto is serve by living to your fullest potential. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I think it means that what you're trying to do is you really want to be your absolute best. Sometimes we kind of try to tone it down a little bit. Well, I need to sacrifice so that my kids are doing okay, or I need to sacrifice so that the parents I'm caring for can be okay. But the truth is that if you're living half of your life, you're cheating everybody else. And so the best way for you to serve is for you to really realize that full potential in your life.
Well, it certainly rings true that serving, or, I guess, being small doesn't really serve others as well.
It doesn't, and it's a lie that many people have told themselves, that somehow I have to sacrifice who I am in order to make everyone else happy or to fit in or go along. But the truth is that if you're doing that, then you're cheating everybody else.
Now, when you talk about balance, I always found that was kind of challenging whenever you read any kind of a personal empowerment book out there that shows how to achieve goals. And they talk about being balanced in all aspects of your life, and you think to yourself, well, that just seems like almost impossible to be balanced and full in each area. But is that possible, and what exactly does that look like?
Balance is going to change, and so the idea that somehow we are looking at a scale where we put 10 pounds on one side and 10 pounds on the other side, and, we've reached enlightenment, and we're here, that this is the place that we've come to. It's a complete falsehood. I like to use the analogy of a balance beam. You are making little adjustments every day just to stay up on it. And so what balance is going to look like for you one day is going to be very different than what balance is going to look like for you on another day. So balance is something that's going to shift and change all the time, and it's your job to be aware so you know what balance is going to be for you that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I looked at that as being daunting because they talk about you want to be balanced in your spiritual life, in your family life, in your love life, in your financial life, in your community life, and I was just likened to the old vaudeville entertainers where you're spinning all these plates on different sticks, and I'm like, how do you do all that?
Yeah.
And is it possible is the question.
It's absolutely impossible, and to try to achieve that type of standard would be to exhaust you in a very short period of time. If you're dealing with parent care one day, you know what? That's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of your attention for that day. If it's a particularly traumatic day, that's where your balance is going to be. On other days, it might be focused more on, what direction do you want to be maneuvering your career? What areas do you want to see enhanced as far as work with charity? Mm-hmm. That's going to look different on different days.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping to hear because I would, like I said, as people read through that or even myself, I thought, me personally, I want to focus in one area at a time and just do excellent to where it kind of works itself out and then concentrate on something else. would I feel fulfilled in that area? But they kind of give you this idea you're supposed to do it all at once, and I just thought, oh, this is just crazy. There's no way you can balance your life quite like that. Now,
Not
I know
going to be all at once, yeah.
exactly. So, how do you work on achieving life balance? What are are there first steps that you should take, or how do we go about doing this?
The first thing you want to do is you want to start a practice of just getting quiet. People seem to think that this is just the one thing that you gloss over. Oh, okay, yeah, I get quiet. When I'm working with executives, they say, yeah, and when am I going to find that time? The truth is, if you can get 10 minutes where you just get quiet enough to hear what your own voice has to say, very different than hearing voices, hearing what your gut, your core reaction is, then that's really setting that foundation. And then you can move on to saying, okay, now I need to assess my values. I have this really strong drive to create a new foundation of charity work. Or, you know what, I just know that now is the right time for me to start that brand new business that I've been looking at. Those are going to be the kinds of things that you can actually hear if you're not stuck in that pattern of just an automated life. I mean, we've all driven to work and then you can't even remember how you got there. I mean, it's just you're so on autopilot that creating that awareness is really the glue. That's the foundation that changes everything. And I find people try to cheat around that a little bit, but that's really the one thing that if you can get that, if you can hear anything I have to say today, it's that. You've got to set aside some time just to hear yourself.
You know, Stephanie, I was just thinking as you were saying that about talking with executives, and I'm sure that people that you work with, it's the same thing, but they all always proclaim to think, well, when do I have time to stay still, be quiet, and listen? And I kind of wonder, why is it that we're in a day and age that all of us think that we're so busy that we really don't have the time to do those things that really can move you in a more fulfilling and an important direction? Because really, there's plenty of time.
That's so true. And you wouldn't believe the things I hear. I hear things like, well, can I do it when I'm driving to work in rush hour traffic? No, you can't. When you're stressed out about that person in front of you and the honking horns around you, that's not your time to hear your voice. The other one I've heard is, can I do it when I'm going to the bathroom? No, you cannot pee and hear your inner voice at the same time. That's just not possible. It's setting aside that 10 minutes, and I think sometimes we don't do that because what we're really afraid of is what that core in us is going to say and what that gut reaction is going to say. I think we get a little nervous, like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it will ask me to do something that I don't have time for, or it will ask me to change, or it will challenge a relationship that I have that's not working, and I will have to adjust to that. And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to maneuver away from is it isn't that they don't have that 10 minutes or that half an hour a day. The truth is that they just don't want to hear it.
Really? So give me an example or two if you can, because that was the next question I was going to ask is, why is the reason from your experience as you work with people that's one of the first things they say is, well, I just don't have the time to sit there and listen to, my inner voice for anything. And, well, you just pretty much answered that. It's because they're not too sure or going to feel comfortable about what they hear. And why is that?
There are things that are going to have to change. And there are nasty little things that have been festering for years that we've said, no, I don't want to hear that. You're kind of playing that old childhood game of sticking your fingers in your ears and saying, la, 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 la.
Right.
It doesn't exist. And the truth is problems don't go away. They just get bigger and nastier, and they fester, and they eventually will come out. And if you can deal with it when it's in that really whisper stage, that's saying, hello, look at me, I need to spend some time on my health. Okay, let's address that. Instead, it has to be the heart attack and you end up in the hospital before anybody's willing to really see what's going on. And I think that's it. There's this fear around change. There's this fear that I'm going to have to adjust, or I don't know if I'll be able to match what my inner voice is saying. And it's simply not true. We're talking about baby steps as far as change goes. Teeny tiny little steps.
I was just thinking, Stephanie, what do you think from your experience in working and coaching people is the biggest reason people fear change and the unknown?
I think you just said it. It's the unknown.
It's the unknown.
If I don't know it, if I don't already have a handle on it, then that's scary and something bad could happen to me. But the truth is that something really great can happen as well. And for sure it's not going away. The ostrich approach just simply doesn't work. And I know that if you can address it when it's a tiny whisper, then it is a brick wall or a big event in your life, you're going to have far more success, and it's going to be far less traumatic to create those little tiny steps of change if you can deal with it then than to deal with it in the really big and nasty stage.
I think it's really interesting, too, Stephanie, when you talk about the fact that people usually come up with an excuse, well, I don't have the time, or there's usually one excuse or another when it comes to real change. And would you say that in your experience that reality is kinder than people think it is?
Far kinder. Nicely said. Nicely said. It's always going to be such a relief. And there's a string of energy going from you to whatever it is that you know somewhere in the back of your head has to be addressed. And that's draining you. It's draining your energy to do all of the other wonderful, productive things that you want to do, because there's a little string of energy from you to that list in the back of your head that says, yeah, I really know I should really be addressing that relationship. I know it's toxic, and I have to deal with that. But I'm going to put it on the back burner today. Mm-hmm. Every single day that you make that choice is a day that you don't have that piece of energy available to you.
You know, and that makes a lot of sense, too, especially when it comes to making those changes and being a person who becomes their own personal hero, if you will. And, you know, one of those things that you need to do, I would think, in this process, at least as I've understood it through many shows that we've done, is that sometimes you have to let things go, certain things, or surrender. Now, why is that a powerful position to be in when you're trying to make these leaps of faith, if you will?
Surrender is such a powerful choice, because the truth is that if you're trying to micromanage it down to this little tiny box of expectation, if I don't get my result in this exact box, then I'm not going to be okay. Mm-hmm. If I don't get the response from my business partner that I really wanted him to say, then I'm not going to be okay. When you can move forward in that and say, you know what, whatever he ends up saying, it's going to be okay, and then I'll make the next step and make a new decision at that point. You're so free to receive either something better or to stop that paralysis that we can get into that says, oh, I can't move from this one spot, and empowers you to make a new decision to go in a new direction. So surrender is actually a super powerful choice, because it allows you to accept what's there now and to move forward and get something better for yourself.
Oh, okay. Now, because you were describing that, I was thinking, you know, as you said, choices, that you begun to gain personal power as you just sort of trust in the flow of, I guess, that instinct that you're working on, which people tend not to really follow as much as we should to get where we want to go. So you begin to see where you become more conscious about how it feels to change. Tell us why it's important when you want to live from more of a conscious perspective more than an unconscious one.
You're always looking to be more conscious, because when you're aware, you're going to make a better decision. It's when you're unaware that you're really subject to everyone else's whims. You're in a position where things just happen to you, and you're not even looking at why it happened or where it came from. You have no power to make a new decision. It's that consciousness, it's that awareness that you get from that 10, 15 minutes every day of just taking that time to reflect that allows you to say, oh, okay, I see my pattern. I see where it's coming from. You know, it's not just that I have a bad relationship with this friend. I'm in a series of relationships where people are taking advantage of me, or I'm in a series of situations where people feel like they're not being heard, when I'm talking with them. So if that's the case, then you know there's one common denominator, and that's you. And you can begin to see those patterns. You can start to pick up on those pieces. And when you're conscious, you'll see where the pattern is, and that's where you're actually empowered to make some changes.
Oh, so very well said, Stephanie. I think one of the biggest measures that we live with is in relationships, not just with other people, but even in loving relationships. It could be a husband, wife, boyfriend, and girlfriend, and you were talking earlier about how a person will just kind of stay in a relationship that no longer really works and serves them, but yet they feel that letting go of that, that fear of being alone, I guess, is much greater than the pain of staying. And you can see where letting something go, or surrendering, if you will, begins to give you that power back to where you begin to listen naturally to your inner self and live consciously, as you're talking about here. Now, what's neat about just that piece of philosophy that you're sharing alone, or at least that's what I'm taking from you, is that it isn't just about how you think, because you can think all you want to differently, but that doesn't really change the internal and the external. Have you experienced it that way?
I find that when you think differently, you act differently, and when you act differently, you get a different result. So just sitting around and thinking differently doesn't change anything for you, but if you really have decided that that's truth, then you will move towards the action component of it.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes even greater sense, I think. Now, let's talk about people that you've worked with and the profound changes you've seen where they sort of look at you saying, I never thought I could have done that.
I don't
you
know
must
how
have
I got
a repertoire
myself...
on that bag of tricks of yours, I'm sure.
I don't know how I got myself into this pickle. Is that what you mean?
Well, it's that, or here's somebody that says, there's just something about life. I just don't feel like it's really mine. I want to connect and I want to get there. That's the first question, but then you start working in the process, and then all of a sudden, there's all that resistance that sometimes people like that will feel, but then they finally break through, and that's sort of what I'm looking for here.
Right. I think everybody's looking for a deeper sense of purpose, and as strange as it sounds, there is a resistance to that, because finding purpose means that you have to know who you are. And what I encourage people to do is to focus on very small changes. A lot of times we've been unconscious for many, many years, and that unconsciousness has created a life of, how did I get here? Wow, I woke up and, 20 years passed and here I am. And it's by sitting back and saying, you know what, I'm going to treat this as a really, very much a discovery period. I need to learn about myself and see myself in a new way. I was working with a president of an organization recently, and the organization was absorbed by another larger corporation, and so ultimately he lost his job. And he's saying, okay, here I am, I'm in my mid-50s. What does all of this mean, and who am I in this now? And that required him to, again, get really, really conscious and say, okay, well, I have to find who I am in this, and that's going to take some really basic small steps, or I'm going to really look at, what do I like to watch on TV? I mean, it sounds silly. You're thinking, TV, what does that have to do with the guy's life? But it's telling him a direction of his interest, of where he needs to concentrate next. It's a paying attention to all of those tiny little parts of your life that make the big difference. And then really understanding why. What's the intention behind my actions? Why am I taking these steps? Because if we can really understand why we're moving in that direction, then that's going to help us determine the effect that it's going to have on us. We can actually understand where that effect is coming from.
I know it must be really wonderful as you work with people to see them finally grasp and say, wow, this is what a genuine self feels like. What does that look like to you?
It's when people get so comfortable in their skin. I know I've done my job well when someone says to me, you know what, Stephanie, I realize nothing bad can really happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will use everything as an opportunity. I'm aware enough and I'm proactive enough now that no matter what ends up in my court, I'm willing to look at it and use it as an opportunity for my growth. And when someone says that, then I know they're golden. They're done with me. Because they're really in a position where they know themselves and they're willing to use every circumstance as an opportunity to get to know themselves better and as a growth opportunity.
Are you trying to tell me, Stephanie, that you don't want to make a career out of people? Good old talk therapy, anyway.
No, I've seen you for 2 years and I'm done.
Beat it. You're on your own now. If you can't fly now, then we'll get you an airplane. Oh, by the way, you can afford it now. So, it's interesting that you bring up that point about true growth, because one of the things that happens in life, and it just does, is there are circumstances that at the time feel beyond our control. There's a crisis, or could even be a series of crises where you just begin to feel overwhelmed. There's your daily living, and now you've got to deal with this that came at you. But if you can get to a genuine place to see what it is, you realize these could have been lessons that you've been avoiding the whole time that are trying to get you to where you think or believe you want to go. Would you kind of see it that way?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It isn't that we're calling in all these great things like death of parents or diseases or, and saying, woohoo, bring that into my life. I'm excited.
Give it to me, baby.
That's not the program we're signing up for. It's understanding that no matter what shows up in your life, you are so powerful that you get to choose your experience with it, that you get to say, I'm going to choose my actions, I'm going to choose my reactions to this, and that's the piece that I have control over. And I'm going to use this no matter what to turn it into a growth opportunity for me. When that's the attitude, you're unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah, I remember that it was many years ago I was talking with someone who kind of was doing the kind of work that you do, a little bit differently. But the thing is they say that when you start demanding from life to bring anything that it wants to bring to you head on, that life actually just starts to get easier. And you start welcoming whatever comes along. And that's pretty much what we're talking about here when it comes to transforming yourself and recognizing your personal power.
Absolutely. And the real truth of it is that when you have that attitude, that kind of proactive, positive attitude, you're training your brain to even look for things that are more positive in your life. You're saying, good things happen to me, and no matter what comes in my life, I turn it into something good. You're literally training your brain, because your brain has to be right. If it believes something, it has to be right. You're going to find a way to make yourself right. So you're looking for more good things. You're thinking, okay, well, how can I turn this scenario into something good? How about this situation? And I know that what you focus on is going to get bigger in your life. And if you're focused on a positive outcome, then you're going to find a lot more positive outcomes.
Mm-hmm. For those of you just tuning in, we're talking with executive life coach Stephanie Samanchi about how it is that you can uncover your true personal power so that you can begin to experience what is considered life balance. And for those of you, just as this is her motto, it's serve by living to your fullest potential. And, really it's a shame, too, Stephanie, that sometimes people may never experience what that feels like, to taste it, to hold it. And what you were talking about earlier is you begin to face these challenges, good or bad. They're indifferent, really, as you get to this true, authentic power that you have inside of yourself, that your brain begins to see things differently, too. Now, we've done many programs about that subconscious programming that, for instance, you made a set a goal. Let's say that you want to be wealthy, for instance. So you go out and you take the steps, you do the goals, you read whatever it takes that believably will take you there, but subconsciously it says, but that's not what you really want. And so you tend to create the reality to keep you from getting what you think you want. And in this situation, what you're saying is, as you begin to exercise that subconscious a lot more frequently, then you will begin to create those circumstances or see those things that you never seen before.
Oh, it's so true. Very well said.
I just got lucky.
I I'm always amazed by the power of one's mind. And that ability to focus on what you want to see expand is absolutely phenomenal. And the truth is that your life is really a reflection of you. That's a reflection of what you've created. Whether you like that or you don't like that, it doesn't change the fact that it's a reflection of what's going on inside of you. And so if there are lots of positive things, then great. You know that that's the area and the direction that you want to continue to move in. And if there are areas that you want to change, that's okay too. You know that, and you can begin to address that actively by giving yourself a new thought or a new pattern that you want to create, a new belief that you want to emphasize. It's not about not thinking about something else. I think oftentimes we think, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to think about it. And of course, what's the first thing you do when you say don't do something?
You do it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about giving yourself a new thought to think about.
That's great. Now, that's what gives me an interesting perspective here as well, that as we think, thinking takes energy. And anybody who's experienced negative thinking realizes how tired they feel, lethargic, it's just draining them. When you're in a positive state and things are going well and you're thinking, it seems like you're full of energy, like you just have more than enough. And I just kind of wonder, how do you, when you can see that, how you can begin to let go of those things that kind of just take away your energy, because it's more than just the thinking, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. I say you need to use your emotions really effectively. So if you're going to work and you're coming home and, oh, that coworker, he just got on your last nerve, and you just cannot believe what a jerk he is, and you're making your spaghetti and you're still thinking about what a jerk he is, you know that that person's getting a lot more of your energy than he deserves. But you can use your emotions to tell you what's going on. You can say, oh, I'm feeling a lot of resentment about that. I'm feeling a lot of jealousy towards the position that he got. When you know why you're feeling something, when you know that you're feeling it, you can begin to address why. I know that jealousy means you believe you can't have what the other person has. That's what jealousy
that's a good
means.
point.
If you thought you could have it, you wouldn't be jealous. You'd just walk right over and get it.
Right.
And so
that's a very interesting point. I never really thought about it that way before.
So if you believe that you can't have something, then you can't have it. So if you're feeling jealous about something, then okay, you've told yourself, I can't have that. And like Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way you're right. So we know that if you're in a state where you're jealous about what your coworker gets to do or jealous about that position, then you can begin to address that. And I'll tell you, I learned a while ago that if I can't have success unless I'm ready to be happy for someone else's success, I started getting very, very happy for a lot of people. I wanted to attract some of that success for myself. And when you're looking at where your emotion is coming from, instead of saying, oh, I don't want to feel that, I don't want that to be the case for me, when you allow yourself to say, oh, I'm going to use that emotion as a tool and use it as an information source to then see where it's coming from in me and make a new decision about the direction I want to go or the area that I want to focus in, that's when you're really in a place of power to change and to take back that energy and create more energy for yourself. It's about really... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just thinking as you were saying that, I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, wow, this is interesting.
It certainly puts you in the control seat. And I think that's what's really exciting about this work is that a lot of times we feel very reactionary, that life happens to us. And when we see ourselves as the creative force, the force that gets to act and react, that really puts us in the driver's seat to create the kind of life we want to see.
Because I know when you were talking about how people tend to feel envious of what others have or what others are able to do, and, there's no greater measure that a person can experience what we're talking about here now than when you're at work. There's always the boss. Why do they get the easy way? Why do I have to do all the dirty work? But when you really take a look at what you're saying to yourself, those are clues of how you can transform the kind of thinking that puts you into a position that you're in the first place. And that gives you a position, a starting point, if you will, to actually change that. And I wanted to know, what do you think is the easiest way that a person right now can begin to find that purpose and that sense of balance, knowing now that, geez, you mean to tell me what you two are saying is that I thought myself to where I'm at and that I can think myself somewhere else? But that's really how powerful it is.
It is that powerful, and I encourage a practice of gratitude. So that's jotting down a couple things every day that you are grateful for, because that changes your focus. But here's the caveat, and I find this, and particularly with women I find this, gratitude is not an obligation. So if you're writing down things like, oh, what kind of a wretch would I be if I didn't write down that I love my kids? Mm-hmm. Oh, what kind of a wretch would I be if I didn't write down that I'm happy that I'm healthy? That's not gratitude. Gratitude is really looking at yourself and saying, what made me feel good today? What made me feel joyful today? And when you write down those things, that starts that gradual shift towards your sense of purpose, your sense of balance. That's where you're going to find it when you start looking at what brought you joy, not a series of obligations. So we all know we're supposed to live a life of gratitude, but make sure that gratitude that you're focusing on is what's really making you feel joyful and happy, not just some sort of arbitrary obligation you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. I know that I was just now thinking about that plane crash that happened in New York.
Yeah.
And everybody survived, and there was one particular moment that I was catching on the news how one of the passengers said she would never fly again. And I was just thinking, but the funny thing about that moment is you're thinking, so this is what a plane crash is like. You're grateful that you've got a chance to reflect on it. As silly as it sounds.
Yeah. And you know what? She could have taken that experience two ways. She could have taken it and made a bigger life and said, wow, look at what a lucky person I am. I'm just the kind of person who good things happen to, who things work out for, and I'm going to expand what I believe is possible for myself. Or you can shrink and you can say, wow, scary things are out there in the world, and I'm going to try to limit my life. I'm not going to step out of my box of comfort at all. I'm not going to take a risk and try to grow. That's what I mean by you're creating your life. You have a choice. What direction do you want to take it in? You don't have choice over whether or not you're in a plane crash, but you do have a choice over how you respond to it.
Well, very well said. Now, I know that you have a free newsletter and I guess there's a CD that's available here. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners about that?
I have a CD, and that's looking at the life basics. We're looking at those life skills that promote your empowerment, that look at your sense of joy, that help you develop your sense of purpose. And then I have the most wonderful free newsletter. I'm so excited about it because it's the 1-minute read. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of stuff in my inbox, and I want something short and inspirational that gets the job done. And that's what I like about this newsletter, is it's short, once a month, and it gets the job done.
That's the most important thing.
That's what's really nice about it.
Now, Stephanie, I'm just as we're ready to close out here, what about what you do has impassioned you the most, and maybe some of the unexpected things where I didn't expect that to happen, but that's cool.
I am surprised every day in my job.
Don't you love when you can go to work and it's not predictable?
There is nothing predictable about my day, and it is always a joy because the truth is that I get to learn from my clients every day. Every day they teach me something really wonderful and really new, and it's a job where I get to grow as much as my clients get to grow. I get to use it as an opportunity to expand, and that's really where my joy and my job come from.
Well, now, Stephanie, go ahead and give particulars on how people can receive your newsletter, your 1-minute read, as you call it, and maybe find out how they can get your CD.
They can go to my website, StephanieSomanchi.com, StephanieSomanchi.com, or you can give me a call directly at 503-372-5208. And I provide workshops and speaking engagements, and my website is a wonderful resource of all sorts of information, so I hope people will stop by and take a look.
And now, because, Stephanie, this is an international radio program, and you have such tremendous personal power, you can work with people pretty much all over the world if you need to.
It's so true. I work with people all over the U.S. and abroad as well, and that's a wonderful situation because, you know what, phone lines can do miraculous things.
And I'm certain that there are a few people down in, say, Chili's that would like to become international people. Well, Stephanie Samanci, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to have you on our program today.
Oh, absolute joy. Thank you so much for this.
You bet. Thank you very much. And again, Stephanie Samanci, go ahead and go to her website at stephaniesamanci.com, and you can find out about her free newsletter. As she said, it's the 1-minute read. Sometimes just a minute a day will provide those miraculous changes that you're looking for. We'd also like to thank our following sponsor for making this program possible, Immunotech. If you want to create your own future by joining the Immunotech team today, whether you're looking to replace or supplement your current income or start your home-based business on the foundation of 13 years of double-digit growth and expanding sales. At a time where companies are feeling the impact of today's economic conditions, Immunotech continues to expand. We've also got 30 years of research behind the flagship product, Immunical. To find out more about how to begin your future today, just simply contact Peggy Kersey at 503-962-0644 or visit the opportunity at immunotech.com. That's IMMUNOTEC.com/PKERSEY. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. Be sure to visit us at our website, beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50 with a 50, and also sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter as well. It may take you just a bit longer to read it because we have a lot of great pictures in there as well as past audio files and YouTube videos as well. Thank you again for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.